Yahweh Isis, I am counselor of the people. So when I'm speaking in Hebrew, I want to make it clear to you that I tried the tribulation was beyond massive. Now your past is one feature.
So we're going to start it out. Of course, it's Memorial Blowing the Trumpets, New Moon, Scriptures. It's 2 feast days in one. And it's not, I know how we used to teach it back in the days. The 7th new moon isn't the highest new moon of the year. No, it's just, all it is it's a new moon and a feast day falls in a new moon. Like go to, you have to understand, new moons are one thing, holy days are something totally different. New moons are a day of worship and a day of praise in the Most High, similar to the Sabbath. When you read the guidelines of the new moons, those guidelines go similar to the Sabbath. The only difference is that you can do what on a new moon? Cook on a new moon. On Sabbath, you can't cook. You understand? And how you know this is everybody go to Ezekiel the 46th chapter first and foremost.
The book of Ezekiel, chapter 46, verse 1. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, the gate of the inner court that looketh toward the east shall be shut the 6 working days.
Right. So it says the gate of the inner court that looketh towards the east shall be shut 6 working days. Right? So for 6 days a week, this particular gate.
What's the inner court?
The inner court is where we did what? We set up our prayers.
But on the Sabbath, it shall be open.
Right. On the Sabbath, it shall be open. For a reason. Read on.
And in the day of the new moon, it shall be open.
On the day of the new moon and the Sabbath, on both of these days, it's going to be open. And there's a reason why it's going to be open. Read on.
And the prince shall enter by the way of the porch of the gate without.
So now when it's talking about the prince, we would normally say, oh, it's the king's son. But it's not actually talking about the king's son. It could be anybody, the person that they set up over it. And the reason why I said it is because the Most High called David his prince when you read about it. You understand? So it doesn't necessarily mean it was actually the king's son. It was a person that they put up over that authority. He was a prince of rule over that. You understand? So read on.
And shall stand by the post of the gate.
Right.
And the priest shall prepare his burnt offering and his peace offerings, and he shall worship at the threshold of the gate.
Right. So this was a place of what? Worship on the Sabbath days and on the what? The new moons. All right. So read on.
Then he shall go forth, but the gate shall not be shut until the evening.
Right.
Likewise, the people of the land shall worship at the door of this gate.
So now it says not only that, but likewise also, not only will the prince do it, but likewise also the people of the land shall worship at the door of this gate. Read on.
Before the Lord in the Sabbaths and in the new moon.
So they will worship at this door on the Sabbaths and the new moon. So we're showing you that on the Sabbath days as well as the new moons, that you're supposed to do what? Give worship and praise to the Most High. The only difference is on the Sabbaths is strictly a day of praise from sun up to sundown. That's the difference. But now on the new moons, after you set up your praise, you gave praise. First of all, you did the service and everything. After you did the service, you did all of that, you did the service and everything. Then you feasted. That's what you did. So on the Sabbaths and on the new moons, they're days of worship. Go to Isaiah 66, verse 23. But finish reading that, but I want you to just grab that quick fast.
And the burnt offerings that the prince shall offer unto Yahweh in the Sabbath day shall 6 lambs.
Let's go into the law. So we don't have to worry about that aspect of it now, because we all know that Yahweh Shai was ultimate sacrifice. So go to Isaiah 66, 23, just to furthermore provide proof of what the new moons are about as well as the Sabbaths are about. You know, just to, because what we're talking about, it is a new moon, yes, but it's also Memorial Blowing the Trumpets. Now, we don't consider the word Sabbath when you say new moon, but it's a day of worship. Although you do the things of a Sabbath, it's technically not a Sabbath. It's named the new moon because it's talking about the new month. You understand? The Sabbath days are what? Every 7 days. But then you have feast days that are actual Sabbaths. Like the memorial blowing a trumpet is an actual Sabbath. The Passover, the first day, which is the unleavened bread, is an actual Sabbath. The seventh day of the unleavened bread is an actual Sabbath. You understand? But we never just said, oh, the new moon was a Sabbath. The new moon is a new moon, but when you read the instructions on the new moon, you know that you do the same thing on a new moon as you would do on the Sabbath. So you know those same rules would apply, because if you're busy worshiping, what else do you have time to do? Nothing else. You see? You shouldn't want to be doing nothing else anyway. So you got that? Isaiah 66 verse 23.
Isaiah what?
66 verse 23.
And it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another.
Right? So it says, it shall come to pass from one new moon to another. You notice it starts out with the new moon. Why? Because the moon represents the beginning of the month. That's what it represents. And the new moon isn't the full moon. The full moon is the middle of the month. That's the middle cycle. And just common sense, how you know it's a middle cycle is because if something changes before, if the moon changes phases before and changes phases after, that can't be the beginning of the month. It has to start as a zero phase. You understand? Because if you look at the moon is illuminated. And the more the days go by, the more a part of the moon gets illuminated. So in other words, when you have your first quarter, after the first 3 days, just that first part of the moon is illuminated. Everything else is still dark. It's just that first part of the moon is illuminated. Then when it gets to, that's called the waxing gibbous. Then when it gets to the half moon, which is like about 7 days later, or 1 to 3, like 7 to 10 days later, once you get there, at that half moon, then what happens? Half the moon is illuminated. Then between 10 to 15 days, the 15th day, you have a full moon. So now what happens after that is once that moon is full, the part that started out in the beginning, that started out first, that starts to dim first. So the way the cycle of the moon is, it makes no sense for the full moon to be the new moon, just because the full moon, it's fully illuminated at that time period. And it takes a whole process for it to get illuminated. So how could you basically say that the new moon is the beginning of the month?
Now,
it takes 15 days. Huh?
Is there any scripture that we could go to?
You have to go into the
like
Hebrew.
That?
When you go into the Hebrew, when it refers to a new moon, it refers to always as the head of.
Right.
When it refers to the new moon, it calls it a white moon in Hebrew.
Because the reason why I asked is because, like, people that teach that.
Yeah, exactly.
They're going to a whole bunch of scriptures
what they use
where
is
it talks about the
Ecclesiasticus.
moon in its full,
Right.
in its fullness.
Right.
And then try to say, how come the scriptures always talk about the full moon, but they don't talk about the moon being dark?
It's easy and it's simple. When it talks about the fullness of the moon, I mean, when have you ever heard the scriptures talk about the sun on a cloudy day? It's always talking about the sun at noonday, right? Meaning when it's at what? Its highest point. So when it's talking about the moon, it's just talking about the moon when it's at its highest point. The moon is at the highest point when it's most powerful is when it's full. Plain and simple. It's a known fact. That's when it's going to be the brightest in the sky.
Absolutely.
And you notice whenever it's saying that, it's regarding wisdom.
And that's true because the sun don't start off at its brightest either.
Right, exactly.
The sun start off dimmer as they get closer to the midday.
Then
That's when it's at its full.
It's at its full potential then. You never hear it talking about the sun at its weakest point. Because whenever it talks about the sun and the moon, a lot of times it's referring to knowledge. So you want to deal with the knowledge at the beginning stages or at the strongest point. The strongest point. That's just reaching what they do. Because they get the scripture in Ecclesiasticus confused. And that's because they don't really understand how the moon operates. If you really want to know about the moon, just follow how the moon operates. When you read about it, when you get an understanding of the heavens, then you'll see how the circuits work, the feast days go, how you do this, how you do that. But you have to understand the sun and the moon. You have to do that. That's why you have to know the difference between the solar calendar and the lunar calendar. Because we did use a solar calendar for purposes of what? Gardening. You have to understand the solar calendar to a degree, or the 365-day farming period. You have to understand that. You see what I'm saying? So, but we didn't go into it like how the heathen did, because they dealt with it on such a
they wanted to worship.
Worship it, right? You understand? But you have to understand certain things. You see what I'm saying? Because it makes sense to. But when they talk that new moon is a full moon thing, that's just like way out of left field. And like I said, whenever you read about the full moon or like the new moon, it refers to as the head of the month in the Hebrew. That's what it refers to it as. But when you talk about the full moon, it talks about a white moon, so to speak. So I mean, sometimes with brothers, what they do is they see something and they reach, and then they start misinterpreting those scriptures, and they get caught out there. So finish reading that in Isaiah.
And it reads, "And it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me."
Right, so we know, right, that this is a future prophecy. And us in this captivity now, this is why we come together on the new moon, because the scriptures talks about what? Rehearsing the righteous acts. And in rehearsing the righteous acts, you have to understand something. This prophecy, when it comes to pass, is going to show you how powerful the Most High is. And I always use this analogy. You know how it is during Thanksgiving, right? When it's empty outside because everybody's in somebody's house. Or Christmas Day when it's empty outside because everybody, no stores, well, stores open now, which is sad, that they pimp their holidays for money. So that sucks. But the thing about it is this. Just imagine that times 20. That's how it's going to be. When it's talking about all flesh shall come and worship before the Lord, all flesh, that's all mankind, is going to come worship before the Lord. Because the creatures observe all of that. The creation observes all of that. They understand all of that. And that's why it talks about how the whole creation groaneth in travail, because we're not woken up yet. Because once we're back in power, the whole earth is going to go back into a systematic order. That's just the honest truth. The whole earth is going to go back into order once we're back in power, because it was never meant to be like this. See, if we wouldn't have broke those laws, we wouldn't be in these conditions. The earth wouldn't be defiled. The water wouldn't be destroyed. But the Most High had to do this way because what? We didn't appreciate it at that time from our forefather Adam. But then even when we had a chance, we still forsook him. And he gave us chance after chance after chance after chance after chance. And we still forsook him. So we had to come to these extreme conditions to where they talk about global warming, talking about all these different things. And, we can blame Esau all we want for the earth being in this condition, but it's our fault. Because what the Most High said he's going to put a no people over you. He told you if you broke the laws what he was going to do. Dang. He told you that. If he told us that, then why are you going to get mad at the conditions of the earth? It's your fault. It's my fault. It's all our fault. It's our forefathers' fault. So we can't blame nobody for whatever goes on but ourselves, because we didn't appreciate this Bible.
Verse 24, "And they shall go forth and look upon the carcasses of the men that have transgressed against me."
Right, so the ones that don't want to do this, their carcasses are going to just be laying out for everybody to see. And at this time period, it's going to be the heathen and the rebellious of our people. You understand? Because when the Most High says shut it down to worship him, you have to shut it down. If you don't want to shut it down, it's either you shut down or you just lay down. And if you don't,
you're going to get put down.
Luke 19:27. You're going to get Luke 19:27.
That's funny. That's the precept I got linked up
Luke,
right
yeah,
here.
you're going to get Luke 19:27. It's nothing like a little example to get your morning started. Nothing like a little bloodshed to get your morning started on that day.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is like people get upset when we bring that out when we talking about the other nations.
Right.
But it's talking about everybody.
It's talking about everybody.
That's not just talking about the other nations. That's everybody.
But see, this is what I try to explain to brothers when you bring it up. Let's talk about Israel first.
"For their worm shall not die, neither shall their fire be quenched,
Right.
and they shall be an abhorring unto all flesh."
Right. So basically, they're going to be left there for that memorial, that example, for anybody that wants to come up against the Most High. Like it talks about in Zechariah during the Feast of Tabernacles, when the Egyptians don't come up, they're going to be that example. They're not going to have no rain for that whole year. No rain means no life.
Good.
That means you're all going to starve. Because no grass, no cattle, no crops, no food, no water. You know, so that's how that is. So from there, go to Leviticus 23rd chapter.
Leviticus 23 and 23. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, In the 7th month, and the first day of the month, and the and the first day of the month shall ye have a Sabbath, a memorial, a blowing of trumpets,
Right.
a holy convocation.
So you should have a Sabbath, a memorial of blowing the trumpets and holy convocation. Now, when you check out the trumpet, you know, although we use the ram's horn, we know when you go into Numbers, the 10th chapter, somebody grab that. The 10th chapter, it gives you the different trumpets. Or there's different sounds for the trumpet that we use. The different alarms, rather. So in the 7th month, it's a memorial of blowing the trumpets.
Numbers chapter 10, verse 10.
Come, read that.
And the Most High spake unto Moses, saying, Make thee 2 trumpets of silver. Of a whole piece shalt thou make them.
Right, so with that one big piece of silver, you made 2 trumpets out of that piece of silver. Read on.
That thou mayest use them for the calling of the assembly and for the journeying of the camp.
Right, so you use the trumpets for the calling of the assembly and the journey of the camps. So in that 7th month, it was a memorial of blowing the trumpets. So on this particular day, this is what we did. We blew the trumpets. You know, it was. And what's a memorial? Does anybody know what a memorial is? A remembrance. A remembrance of what the trumpets were for. A remembrance of the things that was done in history. A remembrance of reflectance of the law. Think about it. You start blowing the trumpets to remind you of what? When we were in the wilderness, right? Coming up shortly after that is what? The tabernacles. When we were actually in the wilderness. So everybody understands, right? So this is why we do the memorial blowing of the trumpets.
Verse 9. And if you go to war in your land against the enemy that oppresseth you,
Right.
then ye shall blow an alarm with the trumpets. And ye
Right.
shall be remembered before Yahweh your power.
Right.
And ye shall be saved from your enemies.
Exactly. Read on.
Also, in the day of your gladness.
Right. So also you blew the trumpets in the day of your gladness, which is today. Or a day of gladness could just be any day. A day that you, like say for example, on a wedding day, you could blow the trumpets. You understand? On a day where, say we all have a big cookout or something like that, you could blow the trumpets because it's a day of gladness. You know, so you want to include the trumpets in there. Read on.
And in your solemn days.
Right, in your solemn days, which, you know, the solemn days represent all the main feast days, which is the unleavened bread, which is the first fruits, which is the dedication of altars, which is the tabernacles. The solemn days, read on.
And in the beginnings of your months.
And the beginnings of your months, which is what? The new moons. So in the beginnings of your months is when you blew the trumpet also. Because you're signifying bringing in what? A new month. A new beginning. Every month is a new beginning. It's a day of gladness and joy. So read on.
Ye shall blow with the trumpets over your burnt offerings.
Right.
And over the sacrifices of your peace offerings, that they may be to you for a memorial for Yahweh.
Right, so
Yahweh thy power.
So they may be a memorial to you. Pass me that water bottle, please. The red one.
Is the scent getting to you?
Nah, I need water.
Oh.
That's all. I just need water. I just think in my throat for a while, so. So from there, go to Nehemiah 8th chapter. You know, but go to Nehemiah 8th chapter.
What verse?
I'll start at the verse first.
All right. The book of Nehemiah, chapter 8, verse 1. And all of the people gathered themselves together as one man into the street that was before the water gate. And they spake unto Ezra the scribe to bring the book of the law of Moses, which Yahweh had commanded to Israel.
So this Ezra is the same Ezra when you read about 1st and 2nd Ezra. This is the same person.
The scribe, called.
He was, yeah.
Right.
Because remember, go ahead.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know the duties of a scribe.
Exactly.
You know, it was the scribe duty to be able to copy the law word from word.
They had
And
some
so-
when Moses died.
Right. So
Yeah.
so when
Yeah.
you really think about it, by default, a scribe probably even had to have what do you call that? A photographic memory.
Of course.
Because when you copied it, it had to be the exact same word. You couldn't just make up anything. It had to be the exact same word. We ain't have no printer press and none of that stuff back then.
Everything was written on leaflets. Or leaves. That's where we get the term loose leaf paper from. Because we call the scrolls that we wrote on, we call them leaves.
Verse 2. And Ezra the priest brought the law before the congregation, both of men and women, and all that could hear with understanding, upon the first day of the 7th month.
So, again, this being a memorial on the trumpets, this is why I love to read this scripture, because this day is a day, actually thousands of years ago, Ezra and Nehemiah were galvanizing the people to go back what? First of all, before we even go back, to get our minds right, coming out of the captivity to go back into our own land. So they're galvanizing the people, trying to get their minds right. That was done on the memorial of blowing the trumpets. And what are they about to do? Read the law and remember the things that they were doing that was wrong, and it got them in that situation. So that's why this day is a day of remembrance. To constantly remind ourselves where we're at to where we need to be. From the point of coming out of Egypt all the way up until now. And the crazy thing is, this is the first time I'm really teaching memorial on the trumpets.
Salakia, I gotta say, for whatever reason, it felt like this is my first time reading this, but I never remember hearing that this event that we're reading about now happened on blowing of the trumpets.
Oh yeah, I would say
because I always go straight to verse.
It just clicked. Though,
yeah,
right?
I always go to straight to verse 8, and then when you read on down and start talking about tabernacles and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And because I'm into tabernacles, I always read that part. But this is the first time I'm really.
This happened.
It's really clicking. Like, wait a minute.
Really
But it started with the blowing of the trumpets.
Right. Because why? They had to reflect, and that's why when I was going, because it's like you said. You see how it would just click for you? Remember I told you I was doing my lesson plan for blowing the trumpets? And I like to go over and I'm like, and it started to click like, yo, that's what the memorial blowing the trumpets is really about. It's about reflection on who you are as far as where, the conditions that we were in at this time period. Because think about it. Coming out of Egypt, right? Once we got to our homeland, the memorial was, remember we was in the wilderness of Zin? Listen, how do we get there? How we got there is because Moses went up for 40 days and we acted the fool. And so and so, they had to walk around that damn wilderness for 40 years and our clothes never faded or waxed, but we all dropped dead in the next generation. So that was something that always should have kept you on point. As a remembrance. Because then remember, shortly after you're doing this reflection, from the memorial blowing the trumpets, 10 days later, the atonement comes. So you have to reflect on the sins of yourself and your nation. You understand? And get yourself right. So as I'm reading it, I'm like, you know what I'm realizing? I'm realizing the memorial blowing the trumpets is really a day of reflection of all throughout our captivities, from what we went through and where we're at now, and how we really need to stay strong for the future so we can make it into this kingdom. You understand? Because in order to get ahead, you still have to look behind you as far as remembering the things that we did. Because it tells you the things that are written aforetime are what? Written for our learning. So as I'm going over that and everything, I'm like, you know what? I never saw it like this until just now. Finish with this. Ezra.
Right. So it says, and Ezra the priest brought the law before the congregation, both of men and women, and all that could hear with understanding upon the first day of the 7th month, and he read therein before the street that was before the water gate, from the morning until midday.
Right, and certain things that we do, we get from the scriptures, like we read when we go out and teach. When you read up above in the 4th verse, how we used to teach on the pulpit of wood back in the days. Right. That's where we get it from. We get it from the scriptures, and we taught the law. Similar to how when we read the law from morning till midday. Actually, back in the days, we used to be out in camp like 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. But we used to be out from the morning till late at night.
Yeah, we did that
We on
with
42nd Street.
Yeah.
Well, no, y'all was the night prophets out.
Yeah, we did
Y'all
that
was
with
night
about
prophets.
from what time in the morning?
Overnight shift.
To like
Man.
5 in the
Night
morning. Early in the morning to
Y'all
5 in the
night
morning.
shift. Yeah, y'all a night shift. That's the night shift.
Yeah.
I need sleep.
I know.
Until the midday,
Okay.
before the men and women, and those that can understand, and the ears of all the people were attentive unto the book of the law.
Right.
And Ezra the scribe.
And see, hold on for a second now. See, they were attentive to the book of the law. And like I said, the reason why they were attentive, because they had lost the law. They had to get it back in their system. They had to get it back in their hearts, which is their mind. They had to get it back. You know.
Here's our camp scripture right here.
Done.
And Ezra the scribe stood upon a pulpit of wood,
Right.
which they had made for the purpose. And beside him stood Mattathiah and Shemaiah and Ananiah and Urijah and Hilkiah and Maashiah on his right hand, and on his left hand Pedaiah and Mishael and Maacah and Hashem and Hashbaddanah, Zechariah and Meshullam. That's how we hold posts.
So, exactly. That's what that is, though.
Cause they was holding posts.
Man. You had men there posted up. You know, but see, again, everything we do, we get it out of the scriptures. We get all that stuff out of the scriptures. So you know.
And Ezra opened the book in the sight of all the people,
Right.
for he was above all the people. And when he opened it, all the people stood up. And Ezra blessed the Lord, the great Yahweh Elohim. And all the people answered, Amen, Amen, with lifting up their hands. And they bowed their heads and worshiped Yahweh with their faces to the ground. And Jeshua and Benai and Sherebiah and Jamin, Akab, Shebetha, Hadujah, Maaseiah, Kalita, Azarah, Josabad, Hanan, Peliah, and the Levites caused the people to understand the law, and the people stood in their place. So they read in the book of the law, and they read in the book of the law of Yahweh distinctly, and gave the sense and caused them to understand the reading.
Right. So what was happening here was the people were being taught on such a level, because, like I said, from this point, they were without the law. They were void. We were fresh out of captivity. So it's being, the law is basically being drilled in their mind, because why? We're going back into our homeland again. So if you can't go back into your homeland without your mind being right.
Right.
You can't go back into your homeland fresh out of captivity and continue to do the same thing. And this is why when you read it, he was barking on people. Like, he was coming down on people when you check it out. So he had to make them understand. He's not talking smoothly. You understand what I'm saying? He's not passive preaching. He's coming hard with the law. You have to understand that. And you're going to be able to tell how he was coming about. You'll be able to tell he was coming hard with the law once you read on. So read on.
And Nehemiah, which is the Teshitha,
Right.
and Ezra the priest.
What's the Tershitha? The governor. He was the governor because he had strings, because he was high up in power in the Persian captivity. You understand? And he was high up in power during the Persian captivity, so he was made the governor over the people.
Verse 9. And Nehemiah, which is the Teshitha, and Ezra the priest, the scribe, and the Levites that taught the people, said unto all the people, this day is holy unto Yahweh thy power.
Right, so this is a memorial. This day is holy unto the Yahweh thy power. Read on.
Mourn not,
Right?
nor weep, for all the people wept when they heard the words of the law.
So it said all the people wept
Where you at?
when they heard the words of
Verse
the
9.
law. Verse 9. And the reason why they wept is because
Nehemiah
what?
8.
We were in sin.
Mm-hmm.
We were in sin, but they're coming with that law. They're not being sweet with it. They're showing us the wickedness. It's similar to when we go out there and camp, and we showing the wicked deeds of our people. The only difference is we knew who we were, so we needed to have this pep talk, so to speak. And it was a long pep talk from morning until midday. You know, so, but this shows you at the same time, our people were so contrite at this time because we were mourning and we were weeping about what we did wrong. Because we really came to, and this is the beginning of repentance. When you can admit to your wrongs, when you can admit that you're wrong, when somebody can admit that they're wrong and repent, that goes a long way. And that's why I tell brothers all the time and sisters, you got to have a relationship with Yahweh Shah on your own. Because if you don't, how you going to make it to the kingdom of heaven? You're not going to make it to the kingdom of heaven. Because it's easy to worship as a congregation, but do you do it on your own? So that's it on that. Go back to Ezra, so we can close that up.
Nehemiah.
Then we can set up the prayer. I'm sorry, Nehemiah. So we can close that up.
Nehemiah chapter 8, verse 10. Then he said unto them, go your way,
right?
Eat the fat, and drink the sweet.
Which we plan on doing in children, right?
And send portions unto them for whom nothing is prepared.
Right. So again, send portions to those that don't have any. We've always looked out for our people. We didn't just have to wait for any day. Look, Memorial blow the trumpets. Take a plate home with you if you need to. It's too wild. But that's how we have to be again, because that was our welfare system. Because the poor was always among us.
Yeah.
You understand? Read on.
For this day is holy unto Yahweh.
Right.
Neither be ye sorry, for the joy of Yahweh is your strength.
Right, so don't be sorry, because the joy of Yahweh is our strength. So now when we reflect, let's reflect in righteousness and happiness and in joy. Let's not do it in a somber spirit. But take time to reflect on this day, because this is an important day for us to really reflect on our history as Israelites. From the past, from the beginning, all the way up through our slavery. So read on.
So the Levites stilled all the people, saying, hold your peace, for the day is holy, neither be ye grieved. And all the people went their way to eat, and to drink, and to send portions, and to eat great mirth, because they had understood the words that were declared unto them.
To make great mirth.
What is that?
And to make great mirth, because they had understood the words that was declared unto them.
So they were joyous. It was a joyous thing. Read on.
And on the second
day.
Sorry,
it's a lot. It says because they had understood the words that were declared unto them. So because they had an understanding of getting themselves right and going back into our rulership with a right mind frame, they were very happy. So I hope everybody tonight has great mirth and understanding that was brought out through the spirit of Hamashiach Yahushua, because this is actually the first time that I taught this the way how it was supposed to be taught.
People try to make it like Africans are the source to all black people when, like blacks in general, all Africans are just one group of black people out of many. Like that's one of the things we got to get people to realize.
That's the Germans actually.
If we allow them to tell our history, according to them, we wouldn't even come from Africa. Like according to them, we'd just be nobody, which is the reason why this scripture is so important. Jeremiah 17:4, it says, and thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee. Discontinue meaning to completely cut off. Not give up, cut off. They completely cut us off. We didn't even know the land that they took us from. Our children grew up not knowing anything. When you read the book Narrative of a Slave by Frederick Douglass, it's like one of my favorite books right now that I'm reading. Like, they grew up not knowing their age, how old we were.
Brothers.
They didn't know who was their brother or sister. They didn't, exactly. They didn't even know who their mother and father was.
He met her once or twice or something.
Yeah, let alone, exactly, let alone to even know that we would take it from the west coast of Africa,
And now when I see